All right, and we are live. All right, I want to thank everybody for joining us for our first podcast. First podcast, second attempt. We were a little disheartened when we found out we did a 3-hour podcast and had no usable audio, which honestly was Paul's fault on that. He could have let me know and decided he'd just let it roll. And so, but anyway, I'm your host, Dan, and this is Paul Larma, Paul Dalton. How are you doing,
It
buddy?
is my fault. It's my fault that we had no audio.
And that's okay. I've forgiven you for that, bud.
Well, that's good. I wouldn't want to have screwed up the audio and not own up to it.
Yeah. Well, how do you feel about it now?
I think I feel that's just we're gonna get our feet wet and bloody, as it were.
As it were, as it were, and as it shall continue to be.
Mm-hmm.
So tonight, I figured we would jump right back into the Turpin family. Like I said, we did about 3 hours, a 3-hour deep dive into it the other night, but we had no audio. Or we had audio. It was just pretty
audio.
echoey. And I hope everybody can hear us just fine.
Audio.
Yeah.
Speaking of audio, Dan, you have there's a secondary track coming in. I can hear it. You got or something.
Yeah, thanks for reminding me. I had the TV on. A little something extra for the audience.
Yeah, a little good stuff, a little Easter egg. They can figure out what you was listening to. Did they get the prize?
Yeah, well, it just depends. We'll hold that probably on our third podcast to see who could discern what I was playing in the background.
I like it.
So, if anyone watching this has heard anything about the Turpins and their 13 children and the just awful conditions that their kids lived through for 25 years, it's absolutely horrifying. They would chain their kids up to beds for months at a time, and they would also put them in dog cages. And they're a pretty despicable bunch, the old Turpins, old David and Louise.
Dan, we before we get started, I guess I'd like to say maybe to come on this. I just thought it'd be some sort of just a really cool distraction to do, And what I didn't realize was, the subject matter. I had never actually heard of the subject, but I take research real seriously, and I looked into it, and I had to say, this one, it's visceral, And so for the people watching, yeah, it's gonna get deep, and it's nasty, and there may be some material that's really hard to stomach. I'd ask that you bear with us. I think we can do this and maintain if we're not clinical, I think we can remain detached enough to actually get the story out there, because I think it's an important story. I think forgetting stories like this is it takes away humanity from us. I think it's critical that we get with this one out there so it's not forgotten.
No, yeah, I agree, and there's been a lot of coverage on it. It's just sporadic. You'll get a little bit of the story here, a little bit of the story there. Barbara Walters in 2020, I think, was the last coverage on the story. And I caught bits and pieces of that. They had the 911 call, which I was going to have queued up, but we'll find that later. So I figure we'll just get right down into it and start out with how David and Louise came together and how they met and how this whole thing started. So Paris, California is located inside Riverside County and has a population of about 79,000. It is located about 70 miles from Los Angeles and about 80 miles from San Diego. And it all pretty much begins with Jordan Turpin's 911 call. Um, she actually escaped the house. This was her second escape attempt, and she used a phone that was not activated, but any phone, whether it's deactivated or not, is still capable of calling 911. So she got through and spoke with an operator, and the the police shortly arrived, and I believe there's even footage. There's even body cam footage from when they showed up. Let me load that up. So didn't you say, Paul, that you watched the Barbara Walters special, the 2020?
I did. I actually I watched both the Barbara Walters special and then the 60 Minutes Australia episode too, because 60 Minutes Australia covered this as well. Both of them were really, really in depth. But I know that over the course of the past week, you have done even more research and came up with stuff that even they didn't bring up on those two
Oh
interviews.
yeah, yeah. We've got a pile of stuff to cover.
And they're both done really professionally. Um, this this body cam footage that you're going to queue up here is really it's a it's kind of heartbreaking. If you watch the whole thing, there's actually a point where he asks Jordan Turpin what her middle name is, and she tells him that her middle name is Elizabeth, and he asks her to spell it, and she doesn't know how to do it.
Yeah, she can't
Um,
even spell her own name. They were supposedly homeschooling the kids, but they they never even attempted to homeschool one single child.
Well, no, no, I don't believe so. When the girl is 17 years old and doesn't know how to spell Elizabeth, yet she's obviously a cogent child. She can answer questions and she's baby. You know,
All right, we're gonna go ahead and listen to that now. Man, she looks so great now.
um, yeah, the difference between this and what she looked like on 911 call, they're a world apart. I think probably because she is a world away from where she was.
Oh, absolutely.
Now, I got no audio from that over here, Dan.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to tell you, Paul. Everybody else will be able to hear it. You won't be able to hear it.
But I see how it's going to be.
You don't need to hear this, Paul. You know, you've seen it.
I've already, I've listened to it more than I wanted to.
Right. In preparation.
Uh, yeah, I've done a lot of research prep, and yeah, it feels like getting punched in the stomach to continue to watch this stuff. You know.
Yeah. Well, we only got a few more episodes of this, so you'll just have to take a shower.
Yeah, then we could do
You
something
have to take a
else.
shower after each episode. You'll be fine. Just
Pretty much.
bump up your
Yeah.
monthly.
Uh, hey, it's every 2 weeks, whether I need it or
Oh,
not,
okay.
man.
Bi-monthly.
Yeah, I'll step it up to weekly after this. Now you know this policeman that is the first one that contacts her. Um, I have to really appreciate this guy.
Yeah, he's a
Whereas
stud.
most police, when they encounter a runaway, you know, their goal is to get the runaway back to the parents, try and resolve the issue, and have the runaway go home. And his assumption here is that she is in fact a runaway. And this guy, you know, went ahead and listened to in his gut that told him that there might really be something here. And as far as I'm concerned, he saved 13 lives
Oh yeah, you know,
that
police
night.
get calls like this quite often, so they really got to dot their i's and cross their t's, make sure that they have an accurate hold on the actual situation.
So, so I've actually watched all the available body cam footage, and gosh, you know, you can tell when this guy realizes that this is really going on. You know how miserable he is. You know that he has come upon this situation, and I can't imagine that this is easy for him. You know, and I'm sure that he feels great. You know, now that he was a part of the solution for this family. But man, what a miserable situation to get stuck into.
No, yeah, absolutely. One of the most horrifying situations that this officer's probably ever come across. I mean, and police officers are human beings. When they come into a situation like this, they have to control themselves. I mean, could you imagine being the
Yeah.
police officer walking into this, knowing that these parents treated these kids this awful? He walks in and I believe even catches either catches them yeah, having the kids chained up, or they just find the chains or whatever. But he knows that that's what's going on, and to
So
not just latch out
so
and you know,
yeah, you know, to me the reaction is visceral. You know, they go into the house, and well, it takes over 2 minutes for the parents to answer the door when
right?
they go to the house, and they come to the door trying that we're wiping the sleep out of our eyes. You woke us up thing. And the police are telling them, well, we've got a report of child abuse here, so we need to check on the kids. And they're trying to debate a little bit. And eventually the officers were like, you know, and well, it turns out that during that 2 minutes, they were unchaining the children.
Yeah,
And there's actually video of one policeman, and he's asking the little girl, he said, where are the chains? And she points at the closet. And, you know, he goes to the closet, and there's just handfuls of chains. And he's like, we've got them. We've got
yeah,
them.
yeah.
I could just see face that he wants to beat somebody for
Oh
this.
man,
You know, how they managed to professionally enact the arrest without breaking heads, I don't know. I don't know that I could do it.
no, no, absolutely
You know,
not.
I don't know that I don't know that walking into that I could maintain the level of professionalism they do. I honestly, those guys, they got a they got a strong program in that department. A lot of respect for those guys.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I'd handle it very well, to be quite honest. I mean, especially how they try to play it off. You know, there's a longer version of that where they show the parents answering the door
Yeah.
and they're acting like, oh, why are you here? We have no idea why you're
Yeah.
here. Huh? Oh,
Yeah, that's
our
actually the
daughter's
video.
left
That,
and she's outside at this hour. What? What?
yeah, and that's actually the video that I'm talking about. You know, they're just trying to. They've got just these stunned reactions on their face, like, why would police ever be at our house? We've done nothing
Yeah,
wrong.
they got David. Like David's like, I don't know why you guys would need to come in here. Everything's fine. Everything's good. Oh,
Yeah. So here's the police at the house on a call for child abuse, and they're there to do a welfare check. And he's like, "Well, do you have a warrant or something?" You know, and it's kind of funny because the policeman's like, "It's a welfare
yeah,
check. We don't need a
yeah.
warrant. Get out of the way."
Your window's doing crazy shit again. I don't know why your window does that, but it just always constantly bounces around on me. That's right. Keeps me on my toes.
There you go then. And then you know, the house when they go walking into the to the house. Really, I think everybody should watch this footage. When they go walking into the house, there is it is the worst episode of Hoarders
Oh yeah,
ever. I don't know who directed that one, but it's really bad.
it's awful. I got some sweet pics of the house. I think we'll get into in probably the second or third episode of this because this is going to take a minute to cover. Just how these people grew up, like how David grew up. David grew up fairly normally, but he was a geek. He was a nerd. He which is fine, you know. Shout out to my geeky nerd friends. I can't say that I'm not amongst you.
Bad haircuts.
Oh man, that haircut needs its own episode. To be honest, I mean it really does. I mean, I just don't understand how you know.
I took the hair. Yeah, again.
Well, I mean, I just don't understand. Like, if you own a mirror in your house, and you can, and if you stand in front of it before you get ready to go anywhere, and you're just kind of like, when I used to have hair, I used to like to kind of style it up, put some gel in it. I used to have all these little individual spikes and stuff, So I understand like wanting to be stylish, but then how is it that when you arrive on this, you're like, oh, that's the one, that's it, that's that's the one, that's the one I'm gonna rock my entire life. I'm gonna rock it. I'm gonna rock it till I die.
I've made many haircut mistakes over the years. I've had many haircuts that nobody appreciated, even myself. And yeah, I never got to the A is an F kid haircut.
Oh man, and then you just rock it your whole life. Never change it.
Yeah, I mean, is this sort of like, is this just owning your shame so that people can't shame you? You know, like when you walk into the room and go, "Hey, I have the tiniest penis here," before
Just want to let everybody know
shame
that.
you about it. Just gonna lean into it and own it, and none of you now has anything on me.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's it. No, I think he just might be a little slow in that regard, a little socially awkward. So, yeah.
Uh, I think that socially, I think that's really accurate.
So David was born in October of 1961. He's the youngest of two boys, Jim, and he's the son of two boys of Jim and Betty Turpin. He grew up in a religious home. No, no shit. Yeah, I think we knew that. He grew up in a religious home. It was Church of God, I believe, is what it was, and that's actually where him and Louise met, 'cause she went to the same church. It was this real tiny little kind of cultish church.
I think he was about 10 years older than her, huh?
Yeah, I think he was like 22 when she was 16.
Okay, so half a dozen years
Yeah,
older.
yeah, ballpark.
So definitely, definitely not an age-appropriate relationship for those of us here in the normal part of the world.
Yeah, those of us who live in the normal area of the world, society, if you will, yeah, that is not an age appropriate relationship. So I mean, he was an intelligent guy. He went on to get he went on to become an engineer. Just a real smart guy. His numbers were good. I think you and I talked about that. How like you're not crazy some of the time. You're crazy all the time. So
Yeah, they eloped.
yeah, they
Is that
eloped.
correct?
And he basically
Yeah.
he
So
showed up at her school wearing a cowboy hat and a fake mustache, and I guess posed as yeah, posed as her father and or creepy uncle. I don't know what he was going for. Um, I think the hairdo would have been a red flag, but he had that covered up with a cowboy hat. And they eloped to Texas, I believe it was Fort Worth, Texas.
well, he's pretty much got a late night sneaky uncle persona down at this point.
Oh,
You know.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, that's just God given with him. He doesn't have to try. That's just God given.
he is a he is the guy who got all the gifts.
Yes, all of them. He got all of those gifts. But he didn't give any of those gifts to his kids. His kids weren't allowed to have any gifts. They would buy them gifts.
Or a sandwich.
Or what?
I said, or a sandwich.
One single burrito. One of the little guys.
Good man. Too soon. And you know, I'm laughing about this, but it's just how I came, because what we're going to talk about here on that, there's nothing funny on any level. I actually feel like I need to beg forgiveness because I was laughing about this. So, you know, that's going to be something we're going to cover here in a while, obviously, but yeah, not pretty.
No, not pretty. They would. They had a very strict diet for the kids. It was a bag of Fritos and one single burrito a piece. They weren't allowed to have more than that.
Yeah, like yeah, I think they're like the Jose or for $2.
Yeah. Yo, I'm picturing more of the like the 8-pack. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it's
that's
got the
yeah. It's San something. It's not Mission. Gosh, I haven't eaten them in so long that I back when I was I would eat them all the time. Nowadays, when I can afford $60 a week for food, I don't have to eat nasty microwave burritos.
Yeah, so with them, I mean, two packages of 8 burritos. I mean, you're feeding each kid twice, and then you got 3 extra. It's kind of like a couple, like 3 bonus burritos for what they called the good time. When the kid was good at Christmas time, they would have this. I'll have to look it up and see the exact name that they called it, but it was like. Since they were good, they got a little extra something to eat. They got to like interact with the other kids. They were treated very specially.
So, yeah, that.
You're breaking up on me, Paul, pretty bad. I don't know what's going on there.
It's been a red flag for me. Okay. Is it any better now?
Yeah, it's better now.
Okay.
I think so.
So when you've convinced a child that getting an extra burrito is something really special in their life, when you've convinced them that that extra 350 calories is something to just really strive for, there's a real problem there. I can understand having a reward system for children. It works, Okay, Billy, if you do all your chores, you can watch an extra hour of cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
Like I get that. There's a reward system there. You know,
Sustenance should not be seen as a reward. you know,
No, an
uh,
extra burrito, shouldn't really be something that you're really striving. It should be a mark you're trying to hit, yearly for your good Christmas
I
time.
agree. I agree. I mean, it is a way to do a good Charlie Brown Christmas. You don't have to spend much money, but gosh, I think the message there from the parents, there's a lot of things on this where I just really don't get the message from the parents on any level.
No, because there didn't really seem to be one. There didn't really seem to be any kind of message whatsoever. I think what it was, honestly, since I've had a lot of time to think about it, it was just kind of a case of like Arrested Development. Like for David and Louise. Here they are, just young, strapping youngsters in the Church of God there where they met. That was probably on their wedding day or close to it. Um, so, I guess I got to eat my words. He did kind of part his hair that day a little bit. He took it kind of, gave it a little swoop, a little whoop.
Yeah, he's got a little mod flop there, huh? A little emo to him.
Yeah.
Uh, um,
Well, you got to dress
you
up on
know,
your wedding day. I mean,
so
you got to look pretty suave for all the people dying to see you marry a 16-year-old
right.
girl. You got to look.
Yeah, I mean because he is definitely rocking a $69 off action, you know. And you can't even get those no more. That was obviously the 70s.
Yeah, obviously. Dave Smith says, "Oh, Paul plays bass, awesome," and then he gives a little one of those.
Right on. He gave me the rock
He gave you
fingers.
the rock fingers and the devil face. So
Right. Nice. Nice. So when you get the rock fingers, you can play your triads with the rock fingers.
old Dave Smith plays the
It's,
stand up. The little plop, beep, beep. Yeah,
yeah,
yes he does.
I play a stand up a little bit. Me and my stand up 5 string.
I think you mean you play when you stand up. Sometimes.
Yeah, I play standing up too. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I play the bass a little bit, or I try anyway.
Yeah, look at that physique. You can tell us about how he looks and his overall health. A lot of working out.
I think I lost your audio, Dan.
Can you hear me? I think my audio is good. Can you hear me now?
Uh, yeah, I can hear you. I mean, what a great look. What is that? I guess I'd like to call that back alley chic. Is that a good name for that?
Yeah, back alley chic, or since they're on a farm, creepy. Let's call that creepy.
Yeah. Well, since we're focused on David and Louise, I think it's evident that David came from a really sheltered family, and apparently felt limited in the women that he could choose because he's choosing a girl that's completely not age appropriate, and I think that she probably had some problems that allowed her to I don't know if she was a master manipulator or an easy target.
Hmm.
I don't know if we're going to be able to define that.
Well, so yeah, Luis's childhood wasn't quite as was quite a bit less normal than David's. She had a mother named Phyllis, whose father actually molested Phyllis, her mother, and the mother never knew that this was going on, and Phyllis never told anyone. And then when Phyllis started having kids of her own, She had Elizabeth, which is um, one of her daughters was Elizabeth, and she had three daughters, and it was Elizabeth and Louise, and then there was a third daughter. But she would actually take her daughters. Phyllis would take all of her daughters over to her grandfather's house so that he could molest them. And she
Yes.
did this when, well, she did this. I don't know why she did this in the beginning, but after a while, she caught him molesting Luis on the couch in the living room and ran him out of the house with a frying pan. Is the story? Okay, I mean that sounds a little made up to me, but everything that I've read says that she ran him out of the house with a frying pan. And after that, divorced him,
So
and he went and lived in his own little apartment. Well, Phyllis still took her daughters over to his apartment to be molested, and he would give her grocery money, basically walking around money. So she came from
um,
a pretty twisted family.
you know, I think that the problems started early with her, and again, I don't know if she is. It's hard to define whether she is a completely damaged victim or a master manipulator that is behind all of this. Um, we look at David, and David looks very mild, very milk toast. We look at her, we can see that there's something happening there. And when we get her background, there's no way that a person could live through that without being heavily damaged. She actually tells a story about the younger siblings were starting to be looked upon by the old man, and as though he was going to be to molesting them, and she would actually go in their places to protect them from that happening to them. And again, it's a question of is she the mastermind behind all this, or is she the victim? You know, obviously she was a victim of the grandfather who was molesting her. Did she then go on to flip that script and become the mastermind that caused all this heartache down the road, or was she an unwilling passenger on a really terrible ride?
Well, I think regardless of how her childhood was, she just developed into something over time, something that was extremely selfish, right? Her and David just are extremely selfish, right? And that's what I get when I read all this, is that it wasn't that they were evil people. It was that they had kids, like they would buy a car, so they could show it to everybody else and say, here's what we've got. Look, we just had another kid. And so they were there to be seen by like the relatives and get a pat on the back for, but not to be dealt with. Not to actually be raised, not to actually be treated like a human being.
Yeah, because a child should be a trophy that you just put up on a shelf until you want to take it down and show people to impress them.
Right. And that's exactly what they did.
They would cost so much less.
Yeah, it's pretty much exactly what they did. I mean, all these trips to Disneyland, so they could pose for pictures, and I found this Baptist church site that is calling BS on some of this, saying that in their pictures, in their Disney pictures, those smiles don't look forced at all. Well, no, they don't. I mean, if you've been chained up for 2 months and then somebody takes you to Disneyland, Disneyland's going to look a lot like Disneyland when that happens.
Yeah, yeah. I think when you've been kept in a dog kennel and fed 250 calories a day, they taking you to Disneyland, I would probably smile.
Yeah.
I'm just saying.
Yeah, I mean, you go from this just horrifying existence to Disneyland. I mean, yeah, you're going to have a smile on your face nonstop until, the trip comes to a
That-
close and you're going to have to go home and get back in that dog cage. You know?
the first time your cat makes it outside, it's pretty excited about
Right.
freedom too.
Yeah, it is. It most
It's,
certainly is. So just imagine a child. I got pictures of the beds where they've had them chained up, and I didn't know it was for months at a time. I just thought it was, well, they would misbehave and then they would go get chained up or whatever, which is still absolutely terrible. But apparently, some of the sisters, when they showed up there that night, the cops had been chained up since October, and that was so it
yeah,
was. I can't remember when it was, but it had been about what, like 3 or 4 months that they were
yeah,
tied up.
yeah. I believe it was from October to December. Now, don't quote me on that, but I believe that's what it was. I saw the pictures of the bedrooms, and I watched the police body camera footage, and there are things in it that are really striking. There was one bed that was the mattress was completely rotted. Apparently, the child had some enuresis problems, and was urinating in the bed, and the bed was literally rotting off of the bed frame. They were making a child sleep on that.
Yeah, well, the thing is they would actually chain him to the bed, and they wouldn't let him. They wouldn't unchain them to use the restroom. They would just let them just lay
Yeah,
in their own filth.
yeah, yeah. Parents of the Year, by the way. I'm just going to nominate them now for a friend. There. I love this picture. I love the expression on her face. Well, what could you possibly need with
Yeah,
us?
this is the body cam footage when they show up at the house. Old David Cuck back there. It's that Cuck face right there, just front and center. What do we do, Luis? Tell me what I do now. Yeah, look at that. The
And
horror on her face. The realization that, oh, fuck. Um, this
yeah,
is
I mean,
bad.
this is the point where you think to yourself, that sound I just heard was the world splitting.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, they
And
had plenty of opportunities to not put their children in dog cages and not chain them up and shit. I mean, how do it? At no point do you just sit down one morning while you're drinking your coffee and just think, this is all kind of fucked up. Like we should just stop doing this.
I think that see, and that's been one of the hardest things about approaching this subject, is that it is so absolutely foreign to those of us that want to live based in reality. Everybody wants to think that they're a good person. Some people know that they're not good people. I know, for instance, I'm not a terrific person. I mean, I try hard to be a good person, try to be fair, and care about the people around me. But I've certainly had times in my life where I wasn't a nice guy. Okay, these people, an opportunity to be good to their children. To them, being good to their children was given them an Christmas. You know, and the really great thing is, as they go through that body camera footage, is when they go to the refrigerator and the locked cupboards, and they open them up, and you see a fully stocked refrigerator with a family's worth of food, and they open the cupboards, and there's boxes of and things that people can eat, like food type things, and the police are like, "What's this?" And they're like, "Oh, that's their food." The kids are like, "Oh, that's their food. We're not allowed to eat that."
Yeah, they locked the food away from the kids. How jacked up is that?
Yes. And and that was so when Jordan escaped, when she made the 911 call, what she had to say was that two of her sisters were chained up, and that was why she wanted help from the police. And the police officer, he says, they're chained up, and her response was, well, yeah, because they stole food, but they didn't steal food because they're bad. They stole food because they were hungry.
Yeah.
When
Starving.
you hear this, when I heard that, I heard that a child that was hungry stole food in its home. How does a hungry child steal food in the home where it lives?
So I can understand if you've got a family of 15. Okay, that's a lot of people to feed. I get that. But at this point, at several points in his life, David was making six figures. Okay, hundreds of thousands of dollars a year as an engineer. Okay, so, but he would make sure that he would buy two new vehicles every year. They would go gambling, and then they would have their trips to Disneyland where they would, invite whoever wanted to come, and they would fit the bill just so they could show how successful and wonderful their life was. So who's got, so why just piss money down the toilet for extra food for the kids? Why do it? You're just pissing. All they're going to do is eat it.
Yeah, because them eating that can't possibly be as important as a trip to Disneyland.
I mean, they're just gonna eat it, and then you got to buy more of the shit. If you just lock it up, I mean,
and you got to buy toilet paper.
Yeah.
They're just going to shit it out. You got to buy toilet paper.
They're going to wipe their ass with that toilet paper, and they're going to throw it away.
Exactly. And then they're going to waste water flushing the toilet.
Oh, yeah. So we'll get into that whole wasting water thing. That was a good segue. We're almost there to that. Well, we do need to move on for time. We've already been on for 40 minutes. Can you believe that? An hour goes by quick.
Yeah, it's easy. It's easy.
So on the July of 1990, let me get this light out of my face. On July of 1988, at the age of 20, Louise gave birth to the first child, Jennifer Dawn Turpin. Now, at this time, this was the Christmas that they took everybody out to Disneyland for the first time, and they took everyone. They took her family, his family, and it was just an all expense paid. They paid for everything for everybody. So, I mean, just look at the money we got. Look, David's got a great job.
Oh, and look at those.
Look at what?
And look at how absolutely true those smiles are. Those aren't forced smiles.
Oh man, yeah.
You're gonna have, pardon me. This is what bothers me. Okay, so they took her sister and brother, and sort of the family members, and basically anybody who wanted to go, and none of anything was going on. You have malnourished children that are chained up, kept in dog cages in their own feces. They wash them up, take them to Disney World. You're telling me that with these children, there's obviously things going on with them. When you listen to the Barbara Walters 2020 interview, and the girl is talking, Jordan is talking about how they weren't educated, that they tried to teach each other. And she says, I knew almost the whole alphabet. She says, and I knew ah, ee, ooh, ah, ooh. And, Barbara Walters realizes pretty quickly that she's trying to say the vowel sequence. But I mean, so this is a girl that at this time would be 20 or 21 years old, still doesn't speak with a good cadence or would think of as diction or enunciation. You can't tell me that they went to Disneyland with these talk that don't have obviously any sort of formalized education at all, and you didn't notice something was going on. I'm sorry, they just don't get to get off that easy.
No, they don't. I mean, look, we as human beings, we are negatively biased. We focus on the horrible, the what if could go wrong, the maybe something's amiss. We spend so much time in that space. I mean, that's how we have survived as human beings, well, as living creatures for as long as we have. So, you're not just going to sit around thinking, "Oh, the David and Louise are doing fine. They're doing completely fine. I know they're doing great." No, you're going to sit around and go, something's not fucking right with David and Louise. We haven't heard from them in like 2 or 3 days. What could be going? What's wrong?
Exactly. And why doesn't your fucking 12-year-old know the alphabet?
Yeah. How do you not call them out on that?
I mean, so what you're talking about, Dan, is the fight or flight danger response of the human, and it goes back into the lizard brain of the human. It's how we identify danger. When we see that something's hinky, we start to notice things around us, and we start to look at our environment. You cannot tell me that people hanging out with those kids didn't realize something was way wrong there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the spidey senses are going off. Okay. They're going off like crazy.
Exactly. And to say, oh, I just didn't notice. I was at Disney World having fun. Okay, you didn't notice that the little girl's shoe was untied, okay, because you were at Disneyland having fun. You didn't notice that somebody was in the parking lot stealing somebody's car stereo because you were at Disneyland having fun. You didn't notice that you forgot to stop and get more cigarettes because you were thinking about going to Disneyland and having fun. When you're dealing with children that haven't been taught to speak, that are emaciated, look at the kids. Look at the arm on the girl with the Minnie Mouse hugs.
Yeah, she's like
shirt.
licking her lips. She's like, man, I smell burger. I think I smell spaghetti.
These children they're obviously malnourished, in my opinion, and So for the brother and the sister talking about, oh yeah, we had a great old time. No, you don't get to get off with that. Oh, I didn't see it. No, you saw it.
Oh, yeah.
You know you saw it. Okay, you lie to everybody else all you want, but I see you. I see you very well. You didn't want to do anything about it.
You got to love the interviews that they signed up to do, right?
I love those.
Oh, they're so terrible. Like her sister Elizabeth, also named Elizabeth. She puts it on thick. She just sits there and she holds her head and she cries and she's like, we never knew, and it kills me. It tears me up inside, and she constantly looks away from the camera so she squeezes a few more tears out. Bitch, come on. You're not fooling anybody. You just didn't give a shit.
And the thing, she's good. The really great thing is you look at the interview with the brother on the 60 Minutes Australia episode, and they're showing him the picture of her, like when she's at court, just kind of hair is sort of unkempt, and a really pretty good picture. Actually looks like a booking picture, but he says, they say that when someone's got something really wrong with them, when they're a psychopath, that you can see it in the eyes. He says, and here you can really see it in her eyes. He says, and then she's got this little grin on her face that I don't like because of what she's done. And she may be my sister and all, but I'm just done with her. And I'm thinking, I wish I could mentally force this guy to punch himself in the face for being such a piece of garbage. Because okay, you knew this was going on. This is your fucking sister. She's been doing this for 20 odd years. This went on for something like 20 to 25 years. Okay, what? You never to take those kids. You went to attend Christmas at their house. You went to fucking Disney World with them. Okay? You don't tell me you didn't notice. Don't tell me, oh, well, I always thought everything was okay, but now that I know that they're lunatics, fuck her. I'm done with her.
Yeah.
Fuck you. You don't get off that easy. You're a bitch.
Yeah, and then there was a scene where Elizabeth was talking about, well, now that this has happened, and the kids are basically in government custody. We have a plan to take each child or a couple of the children and just have every one of our family just kind of basically just take a couple of them and keep them in the family. And I'm sitting here thinking, dude, like your grandpa can't wait for these little girls to get to to within arm's reach of him.
Exactly.
And there's no telling what other kind of creepy shit,
Yes.
because this is Louise's side of the family, right? I mean, no,
Yep.
no, that's just not something we
So
need to
let's
look at
let's
doing here.
let's let's look at what we've got there. We've got granddad who likes to sexually abuse little kids.
Loves it.
All right. We've got his wife. We've got his wife who doesn't get mentioned much, but must have not had a big problem with it because you just don't hear no complaints from her. And she'd probably been dead for quite some time, it seems. But you would think that, on account of it's his daughter, it's her daughter that is getting sexually abused, that she would have had something to say. Okay, so you got the daughter who gets abused, and she's sexually abused for her whole childhood. Being unable to take care of herself, she comes back home to fall back on family. Well, who's she got to fall back on? Her dad. And so she then continues the cycle of abuse by letting him abuse her daughter, Louise. And oh, well, so, given that stellar, shining family history, yes, we certainly should take some of those young, vulnerable humans and
Developing
put them in
developing
that
young
situation.
girls
But
and just send them to grandpa's house.
yeah, let's just send them to grandpa's place.
No, no.
That it's funny because if you continue to listen, she says, I know the kids are mad at us right now, but I think that one day they'll understand, and I hope they want to talk to us again.
Yeah.
God, lady, those kids have tasted sweet, sweet freedom. I don't think you're ever hearing another
No, but
fucking word
that's the
from
weird
them.
thing. The kids, you see them in interviews, or a couple of the daughters anyway, and they're just so sweet, nice, and innocent still. It's like all the horrifying things that they went through didn't take that away from them, and they're kind of seeing the world with fresh eyes, kind of like, kid for the first time. They're experiencing things they were never allowed ever to experience, you know.
And I guess that kind of scares me for these kids, actually. Um, you know how healthy it is to develop a healthy relationship when you're aware of what the world is and how people are. And I have some fear for these young people because they're going to go out into the world, and relationships are going to be one of two things. It's going to be somebody that genuinely cares about the person and wants to help them, or they're going to be a novelty for people to laugh at and to be used and abused.
Yeah.
And I have this fear that they're not going to have any idea how a normal, healthy relationship works at
No, they
all.
have no idea.
It,
No clue.
Look at how hard that is to find just for the average person. Okay, and,
Right.
and the average person has been in social groups with their peers and understands how you're supposed to act, how people are supposed to act. These kids have no
No clue.
idea of any of that. They are walking targets. They really are.
Yes, they are. So that when Jennifer was born, that was when they started going to Disneyland a lot and flaunting their money. Well, on December 17th, 1995, Jonathan Wayne Turpin was born. So at this point, we got Jennifer, who's 7, and Joshua, who's 3, and Jessica, who's 2. Which Jessica was born on November 3rd, 1993. And about 6 months after John Wayne's born, the family loads up and goes goes to West Virginia to visit. Goes to West Virginia to visit instead of having, the family come to them and pay for everything. They decide, well, we'll just load up the kids and we'll go to Virginia. I'm thinking probably just to save a little bit of face and money, you know.
Yeah,
She said that.
yeah. I figure that's probably it.
So they took the kids to Luis's family's house and dressed them all identically, right? Which had a weird tendency to do that, to dress all the kids identical, and anywhere that they went, the kids would have to stay in a line wherever they going to and from anywhere. It's very militant. It's very strange.
Yeah, very regimented. I saw a couple of pictures of them on some stockade fence, and they're all wearing the thing shirts from the Dr. Seuss, and they're like number thing 1 through 13. Sorry, I get that. I get that it's a funny shirt, but when I'm looking at these parents, I think it's because they actually considered their children things.
Yeah, exactly. They considered their kids, basically trophies. So Jennifer at school basically had a horrible, horrible stench to her. She would go to school with greasy hair. Kids would pick on her. She stunk awfully, and so everybody just kind of assumed that she came from a poor family. And this was a time where, David was making six figures. So they just, you know, it just disgusts me. They this is where we get into the whole waste and water thing, because the kids were told that if they
Yes.
washed above their wrists, so they wash the hands, good to go, you know. But if you wash above that, you're wasting water, and we can't have that.
Yeah. So when they're staying in Texas, they moved someplace, and there was a family just a half a mile down the road or so that was really excited because they saw new people moving in. They had children. They had a couple of children. They're isolated. They live out of town, and the kids are real excited because it's like, hey, there's other kids here to play with, and they go there and. They realize that the kids are dirty and unkept. In the one episode of time that I've heard of that they were allowed to play outside, they're playing outside with these other kids, and these other kids realize that they're really dirty. And the one little boy, he asks one of the girls, he says, "Don't you wash?" And that was where you get that. Mom says, "If you wash above the wrist, you're wasting water."
Yeah.
So he goes home and he tells his parents. And then I guess one other time he went over there to try and to talk to them, and he was actually allowed to step inside the house, inside the back door, and like had to wait right there for one of the children. And when he reported back to his parents, he reported back to him that, when he went back home, he told his parents that, the inside of the house was just awful, that it was hugely dirty, and that there was a terrible stench, and the conditions were really awful. What bothers me about this is that these people, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, if I send one of my kids to your house to play with your kids, and they come home and they tell me that your house is disgusting and it stinks and your children are dirty, I don't care whether it makes me like it or not. I'm going to look into it. I'm gonna either go and look at it myself, or I'm going to call the police and request that there be a welfare check.
Which is what we call the right thing to do, you know.
Well, I call it being a person.
Being a human being. But
Yes,
but
that
I
would
mean,
be it.
it's all fine and good to say these kinds of things, but when I was in school back in the day, high school, back in the day, we had those weird kids, we had the dirty kids that were a little strange, a little weird, and it wasn't up to us, the kids, to remedy that situation and tell our parents. But so I don't know I don't know. I don't know if I think it comes down to you just mind your own business, right? For the most part, you just think, well, that kid probably comes from a poor home. They probably can't
Yes.
afford much. Let's not push it too far.
Okay, but let's examine that though, because she went to school until the third grade there,
Hmm.
there in Texas. So she's around 8 years old. Third grade is probably 8 years old, and they did some interviews with the people that she went to school with, and what they heard was Jennifer Turpin was the girl that nobody wanted to be around. She was always wearing dirty clothes, and her hair wasn't washed or combed, and she had a terrible stench about her, and she didn't seem to know how to fit in any given social situation. Nobody wanted to be around her. In fact, they tracked down one guy who went to school with her, and he has since gone on to become a doctor.
Yeah.
And when he got about this situation, he wrote this heartfelt apology, for the fact that when he was 8 years old, he didn't realize that something was going on and do something about it. And it's not his fault. He was an 8-year-old. 8-year-old boys don't notice much other than their shoes.
Right.
So I mean, a puppy and a fishing pole is a lot to an 8-year-old. So the finer nuances of whether or not a person is abusing a child may not immediately dawn on an 8-year-old. However, this is where we get the however in here, because teachers are mandated reporters. Okay, and I got to tell you, how is it that she's going to a school that's full of teachers, full of supposed education professionals? No one took the time to notice that the child was not capable of fitting in socially, and that she hadn't been bathed, and her clothes were dirty, and her hair was unkempt. How is it that nobody reported this? There was obviously something going on here, and yet again, everybody turns a blind eye.
No, absolutely, yeah. Everybody turns a blind eye and says, well, maybe, like I said, they're poor, we can't afford much, certainly they aren't being put in dog cages and chained up and not allowed to use water that they could easily afford. I mean, that's not happening. Well, yeah,
Yeah.
that's not where your mind goes. No, it's not. But unfortunately, in this case, that's exactly what was happening. So when they picked up Elizabeth in Virginia, Elizabeth just said that she wanted to go back with them. Elizabeth is Louise's sister. She said that she wanted to go and just hang out with Louise and David and the family, spend a little extra time with them. And it was probably more like when you see interviews with her and stuff, it was probably more that she just wanted to get out of town for a little while. Maybe the home life wasn't so great. Probably didn't have a job. And she was only 19.
Didn't want
She
to
was
get
only 19 at the time.
and sick of the grandpa diddle.
Probably sick of Grandpa's diddling at this point, because, it says that he just knocked that stuff off, right? Like, and then his ex-wife took care of it, and she divorced him and everything, and so, everybody found out that Phyllis was taking the girls over there, and so he just said, you know what, guys, I've had enough of the molesting. I'm not going to do it anymore. You got me. You got me. No, I don't. Because they didn't really define.
I'm done diddling.
Yeah, they never really defined like how all that shit stopped. It's just like, oh well, that just he stopped doing that one day. Oh bullshit. I don't think so.
I have to wonder if he has the cure to child sexual abuse. Why the fuck haven't we beaten it from him and given it to every child sex abuser there is?
I don't know, man.
Why have we not beaten this cure for molestation out of this guy?
I don't know. I mean, so anyway, okay, so let's get back on track. So she leaves, she goes back with him, and on the way back, she noticed, David and Louise did something a little out of character, right? Up until this point, they had painted this wonderful picture of their wonderful family and all the trips to Disney World, and everything was all hunky-dory. Well, they ended up stopping at a casino and going in and gambling, and left Elizabeth out there to watch their kids. And she said they were in there for hours, and then they came back out, and this was the first time gambling, anybody knew anything about the gambling. But when they came out, David and Louise were arguing back and forth, and David was accusing Louise of being addicted to gambling and all this crap. So anyway, they go back to the house, and she spends a good majority of the summer there, but she had her sister had a bunch of rules for her, which was that she was only allowed to like interact with the kids sporadically, and only when David and Luis was present. And I'm pretty sure that probably had a lot to do with the fact that they didn't want the kids telling Aunt Elizabeth about how horrifying, their existence was. Because, honestly, they could have, because they didn't really probably know, compared to any other kid's life, how rough they had it. They talk about that, how they didn't really know any different. They just,
Yeah.
this is what they were born into. Kind of like, Plato's allegory of the cave. It's just like you only get snippets of reality, and so you have to just process that. The more you get, the more you understand. And so, yeah, they had no idea that being chained up wasn't, the norm. Being thrown at dog
Yeah,
cages and shit
yeah. I
wasn't the
mean, I
norm.
guess when that seems to be your norm, anything beyond that is gonna be something you just can't deal with. There's another story, and took a call there, and was forced to sleep outside for 3 nights or something of this nature. But somehow it happened that she did something that set Louise off the wrong way,
Got kicked out.
and instead of being allowed into the house, she was forced to sleep outside for 3 nights, and then I guess on the fourth day, they threw her stuff out of the house and told her that she had to take
Well, that's what it
off.
was. See, now she says
You
that
know,
she was. There was this. There was a few weird occasions when Aunt Elizabeth was taking a shower that David and Louise came into the shower or into the bathroom with her while she was showering, and they made her get out of the shower, and then they made these weird jokes about her and her body, and she's like, they didn't touch me or anything. This was when she was 19 years old, so um, she was like, it was just weird. I mean, you know, and yeah, it was weird to her. But anyone who probably hadn't had the grandpa touch would say, hell, that's really fucking weird. Like, no, that's not cool.
so that whole deal. Again, I think this plays back to what we were talking about before. Because when you watch the interview with her that was from last year or so, she's like, "Yeah, well, I never realized anything was going on."
Yeah,
Yeah, you fucking
yeah. So
didn't.
let me get this straight.
You
You live in a
didn't know.
family, all
You
right?
didn't know there was anything weird
So
going
let me
on.
get this straight. You come from a family of secrets, where you keep secrets. Got it. And now you didn't
Yes,
know what was going
about a
on. I
grandpa
totally
bad
believe it.
touch.
I believe you. I believe that.
You know, there's a massive amount of weirdness here for any even quasi normal human. When the little kids from the road are dancing, going, "Hey, something's really weird at that house," and when your sister comes in there, what kind of a hold do you have over the sister when she's talking about all this weird shit that happened? Yet when she does the interview last
You're breaking up, Paul.
year, she's like, "Well, I never
You're breaking up bad, bud. You're breaking up bad.
I don't know what that is."
I think you're just getting too close to some other
Oh,
electrical equipment or something, and it's
I don't have
interfering.
any equipment.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I don't know, man. But you're good now.
Okay, so at any rate, we can go on about the sister forever because she's got her own patch of problems. But would you look at that carpet?
Yeah, this is one. Oh my god.
That's awful. They were living in that. There was babies crawling around on that.
So you're saying you wouldn't eat off that carpet then? That's not carpet you would eat off of?
It's not that carpet. No, no.
Wow.
I wouldn't. I wouldn't want to burn that carpet. It's toxic, man. There she
There she
is.
is. They love Disney, man. They love Disney.
I don't know why. I don't know why you gave her a basket of apples, Dan. It's not like she's going to feed them to
She's not
anybody.
gonna feed them to anybody. But that's part of the evil, right? She carries them around the house, and she's like, "Oh, you see these apples? Yeah, none of you guys aren't getting any
You're
of
not
these
getting
fucking
any."
apples. None of them. These are all for me and Davy." So yeah, this is the carpet from one of the houses they lived in. They trashed every single house that they lived in. They left it absolutely disgusting. They let animal feces, God knows what else, but they had animals. They found a dead dog in the house they left in Texas, I believe it was. Um, they completely abandoned that house and moved into a trailer in the back. So they left this really, really expensive, beautiful home and built a double wide trailer in the back and then moved everybody into that because the house that they lived in had gotten so
Yes.
disgusting that they just didn't seem right to them to well, they, you know what, I think they probably just got tired of living there. They didn't give a shit about the kids. They probably got tired of the mess. David and
Well, if these
Louise,
damn kids would just clean this place up.
see, what is up with that? Like, how do you not,
If
how do you
these,
have 13 kids and you don't tell any of them to clean anything? Nothing.
well, the damn kids won't do their chores, Dan. There's obviously a chore wheel that nobody was paying attention
You know what I
to.
think it honestly is? I think it to do chores you have to be present, and they didn't want the kids around them for
Well,
that
yeah,
long.
I think I don't think they actually wanted children. I think you're right. I think they wanted a set of weebles that they could give, that they could dress the same and impress people with. And here, yes, the bedroom photo. Look at the layer of grime on the door and on the wall. You know how little kids run along and they've always got their hands on everything at about that 2 to 3 foot height.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, just look at the layer of funk like below the doorknob and along the wall there, and you can tell that that's just kids running along. And you're going to get that in a home, except normal people clean that off.
Yeah, for those listening
Uh,
on Spotify or just anywhere you can actually see what is being shown, it is the most disgusting carpet you're probably ever going to see, and I think it started out like white. I think it started out a white carpet, or yeah,
yeah,
I think it started out white.
white or
Could
rose,
be a
maybe,
rose. Could be a rose
like maybe
color.
a rose
Yeah,
color.
beige.
It's hard to tell. It's hard to tell because there's not a millimeter of it that doesn't have something
There
spilled
are
on it.
just like giant,
Um,
giant stains that look like a combination of like vomit, feces, urine, and probably dog and animal hair. And you're right. I mean, the kids were walking around in this shit. You get out of a shower, all barefoot. Your annual shower because they took one shower a year,
yes.
which is hard to believe even for me. Um, and I've read it, but everywhere that I've caught any kind of coverage on this, everyone agrees that the kids stand by the statement that they were only allowed to bathe one time a year, unless there was a special event.
Yeah. I mean, I these people, they lived like Neanderthals. I mean, they did. Honestly, I think your average caveman had more respect for his environment than they did. Because again, if you look at the houses that they lived in, they're not houses. These are not. They're not. Dumps. This is not your typical rental. You're talking about large homes, good square footage on nice properties. There's holes knocked in the walls and light fixtures aren't ripped out, but literally every surface is covered with filth. Now,
Yeah, there's
the one
the
thing you
kitchen.
notice in this shot. So the one thing I notice in this thing that really stands out to me is beyond the fact that there's no dirty dishes in the sink. I mean, because you don't need a dirty dishes when people don't,
On plates,
eat.
right?
Um, Right, right. And so if you look on the end of the counter past the sink, there's rows of cups. And what I think it is, you see there are styrofoam cups. And I think that the children each had a
Mm-hmm.
cup and that they're
Yeah.
styrofoam cups. And, I mean, like, I'm looking at this and I'm thinking that's probably the only thing they had that they were allowed to have be just
Mm-hmm.
theirs. You know, uh,
Well, you know
I
what?
don't know how a person could walk through
You know what,
that
Paul?
area.
I don't see any names written on those cups. So they didn't even have their own cup, I don't think. I think that was just, grab the closest one.
Just it's community cups. Look, look, there's 13 cups here. You better make sure you don't break one, or some of you are going to be sharing.
Oh, they did. They couldn't keep track of those cups. Man, look at that filth. How could you keep track of anything? You know that pile in the back there of just absolute detritus? Underneath a pile like that is where they
Yes.
found a dead dog. I believe this is the house where they found it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the funny thing about these piles is that it looks like trash, but as they go through the house, what they find is that it's new toys that have never been opened that use them to taunt the children or something. But she had this shopping fetish, it seems, and she would go and she would buy clothes and toys and things for the kids, and they weren't allowed to have them.
Isn't that, yeah.
When the police originally meet up with Jordan after the 911 call, the clothes she's in, they're filthy. It's horrifying. And then they go in the house and you see the video, and they go in the closet and there's new clothes hanging
Yeah, brand
there.
new clothes.
Um, you know, brand new clothes, tags on them, never been worn. Okay, and the kids are running around in something that looks like it got stuck under the Goodwill donation dumpster.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it goes back to kind of the conclusion that
I
I
mean,
came to. It was that the children were basically, trophies. They were like, look, we had another beautiful child. Um, so look at it, everybody. Look at the clean clothes that it's wearing. Look, maybe we need to take a picture of our children clean on a new bike that we bought them. But once that picture's taken, shut your mouth, get your shitty clothes back on, don't ruin your good shit. That's only for pictures.
yeah,
Don't touch the toys. It's just fucked up.
yeah, and don't you ever touch that bike
Yeah.
again. You never get to touch that bike again. You got to sit on it once.
Yeah.
That's enough. Yeah, the story
For a
about
picture.
the bikes. They they bought the kids new bikes for a picture, and they were never allowed to touch them again. They literally sat in the carport house. The neighbor said they sat there. They never moved, and they rotted away.
Yeah, they never. No one's ever came out and said these toys and these bikes were bought just for pictures. But when you start putting shit together, you're like, well, why would you buy all the kids' bikes and set them all up in a nice neat row in front of the house, and then never let the kids ever touch them to the point they still had their tags on them when they were found by
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. And I, you know, how how cruel is that to you buy a kid a toy or a bike or new clothes, and then you don't let them have it. Like, look, we're gonna put it up here on the mantle, and all you get to do is look
yeah,
at it.
and that's just it.
It's like,
David and Louise
I mean,
are selfish fucking people. All they give a shit about is
yeah,
how they are perceived, and what their life looks like, and how they personally feel, whatever makes them feel good, you know, and fuck the kids, fuck anybody else, I mean, they were there to be seen, be
yeah,
put on display, and that's it.
yeah. And the fact is, they only wanted them seen, in the photos that they
Yeah.
would stage. You have the Disneyland trip, and you have the picture with the bikes, and you have the Vegas trip, And you have they go and they do these things, and it's all staged so that they have these really nice family photos where everything looks great. But that's the only time anyone sees the kids, because of all the people that have been interviewed that lives near them, none of them ever saw the kids except the people in Texas, and that was very limited.
Yes.
And then until they get to California, and you get to the neighbor that says, well, several times I saw them at night upstairs in the house, and it looked like the children were walking around in circles, and I mean, like almost in a ritualistic fashion, you know. And we talked about this. You said that you thought it sounded like a witch's
Well,
coven.
I mean, it's the only thing I can
And again,
relate it
this is
to
this.
mentally. I mean, it's never been
This
fully
is
explained.
yeah, yeah, and this is where I start to get really unhappy again, because you've got this neighbor going, yeah, it turns out I lived
He's
next
all
to
he's
those,
he's all smiling in his
except that
pictures and shit.
what they're what they're not telling you is that they have they didn't do anything.
I think you're blowing up.
They didn't do anything when they saw that.
I
So
think you're blowing up, bud.
sorry, my daughter's calling. So
Sorry, it's all right. Okay, so on May 21st of 1997, Joy Donna Turpin was born. So to keep track, this is baby number 5 at this point. Okay, Jennifer is 8, Joshua's 5, Jessica is 3, and Jonathan Wayne is 18 months. Jennifer was in second grade, and her classmates and teachers said her hygiene had become worse. She smelled dirty and like urine, and always wore the exact same clothes every day. And even in front of the classmates, she would touch her private area, which ended up with her probably being, or excuse me, she wound up getting sent home because of that, because of instances like that. And so you kind of got to wonder, and it's speculation, like, is it a hygiene thing? Is that why she's touching herself, yada yada yada? Because she's just gross. She hasn't had a shower in so long. She's probably itching everywhere.
so I think it's probably most definitely a hygiene thing at this point. I'm not aware of many 8-year-olds. I mean, unless there's some sort of sex abuse going on, I'm not aware of any 8-year-old girls that are actually even that aware
No.
of what those parts do. I'm guessing that it's got to be a hygiene thing.
Well, I don't know,
Um,
because there is an instance that we're going to talk about. Not on this episode, but there was an instance with Jordan where David had her come over and pull her pants down and sit in his lap. And so,
uh,
yeah, like I said, we missed some things the first time we went over this stuff, and you know, it's so hard to not think that anything that comes out of these kids' mouths is 100% true. You know, like, and someone who is capable of doing all of the things that we've already mentioned obviously doesn't value his children's lives or anything about them, or you
no.
know what I mean, their privacy, or they're just objects to him and to Louise.
He's not he's not a virtuous fellow, Dan. He's just simply not a
No,
virtuous fellow.
no,
I'm trying to be kind.
he's not a fellow of virtue.
No, he's not. He's really not. He's not. I don't think Time Magazine's going to be putting him up for Man of the Year.
No. And did you know that Louise actually stated when she married David that she wanted to have 12 kids?
Yeah, she actually said she wanted
Oh,
20.
did she? I thought it was 12.
She
but-
actually, in the beginning, she wanted 20. No, she had talked to the sister. In the extended interview with the sister, it was something about that. She asked her, well, how many children are you planning to have? Because they had already produced a bunch of kids. He said, oh, I want to have 20. Or it was something about, oh, we're gonna have 12, but I'd like to have 20 or something of this nature. But like her goal was actually 20 children. You know, and geez, wow,
It's
never a knockout.
never.
She was never a knockout. I don't know how she thought anybody would want to hit
Well,
that 20 times.
God,
David's kind of
man.
a sicko for
I
having done
mean,
it 13 times.
look at it. She's got a basket of apples. Hair's falling out, just about as bad as mine.
She's dead sick.
Uh, he, he he couldn't get enough of it, man. I mean,
she's
13 kids.
she's
He was hitting it all the
she's
time.
she's
He was hitting
dead
it all the
sick.
time.
She she is dead sick. she's
Oh,
she's pretty amazing.
there's
So
David.
okay, so let's
They love
so
Disney. They
so
don't
let's
give a
get
shit
that.
if their kids love Disney at all. They fucking love Disney.
Look at us dance in our house full of trash, pitiful humans.
Oh, it's not right.
All right. So I know, no, there's much about this that is right. Look, I can dance on the counter with a knife.
Oh
All right,
man.
so Dan, let's go ahead and get through the rest of what you had laid out for this one, and let's just leave them wanting more. We don't want to blow our whole
No.
wad right now.
So June 15th of 1998, Julianne Phyllis Turpin was born to David and Louise, and this was baby number 6. The next month, the family went back to Princeton, West Virginia, to visit their families, and this was the last time that David and Louise would go to West Virginia, and then there were no more trips. So to their home for Louise's family at all. This is the point where David and Louise cut pretty much all ties with any family. And this is where the true horrific things begin. Well, they've already begun, but they get so much worse. So and that's gonna do it for this
Yeah.
episode. I mean, we were right there. We were right there for what I had for this one, but man, at this rate, we could do 4 or 5 episodes with the material that I've got. I mean, people just don't understand. I mean, they see bits and pieces of it, here and there, but they haven't gotten the whole chronological everything that the old David Pan and Wicked Luis of the West here, you know, did to their kids.
Yeah, and again, just to warn the people who think, some of this really becomes very visceral. In doing the research, there was moments where I just felt like weeping. Honestly, I'm big shit work. Some of this stuff literally brought tears to my eyes. And
What's your waist size, Paul?
and
Just if you're gonna give all the stats, you got to give them all. What's the waist size?
it's 38.
I
38.
thought you were
Dan.
gonna lie. That was your segue to
Yeah, I
lie
mean, I'm talking about
that. But
No, no. That there's a lot of frustration and rage. When you start to understand the thing that these people did. And again, I think it's very important that this story get told. I think we do these kids a disservice by not exposing this. And I think there are a lot of stories we remember because the telling of them is good later. I think we have to remember this one because forgetting it would be terrible for humanity.
absolutely. Well, Paul, I thank you for joining me tonight, and I thank you to everyone who came to check out the first episode. I'm hoping that we nailed the audio. I checked it a couple of times. It seems to be good to go. I guess I'm getting ready to find out once I review the footage. And I don't know, Paul, when do you want to do this again? You want to try again next week, like on a Wednesday or Thursday
Oh,
or something?
I kind of like this Wednesday thing. It's the middle of the week. Everybody's pretty bored with what's on TV. Maybe we can actually attract an audience.
Let's do it, man. So next Wednesday at 6 p.m.
All right.
We'll do it again.
All right.
All right,
Love
bud.
you. Bye.
Thanks.
Have a good night.
Bye.
Good night.